All right. So Calvin here is going to tell you more about who we are and what we are going to talk about. So briefly, before I hand over to Calvin, I'm in charge of technology at a company called RGA. We are going to tell you who is RGA. I'm in charge in Southeast Asia and China.
Right. And I'm in charge for the region on growth. And my previous vocation was a creative director in the regional creative director in the advertising agency. So thank you all 13 of you for turning up. Awesome. We'll try and make this very entertaining, okay? Really, it'll be fast-paced and be very entertaining. We're going to go through 6 points very quickly. The first point is what is RGA? And we'll talk briefly about what exponential change is. And most of you will get it and are aware of it. So about RGA, let me use this. If we think about ourselves, we are a 41-year-old company. We started here in Hollywood on the West Coast. We did a lot of Hollywood trailers. We did Superman, we did Alien. Any of you born in the 70s? Some yes, some not. If you remember Alien? Yeah, no one wants to admit it. You see this egg where the alien hatched out? It was actually a ostrich egg. So that was old school. And then we did Seven, won Oscar nomination. Then we evolved into a digital agency. Then from 2004, we became a kind of new age agency where we started making platforms. And also our claim to fame around here was we designed the Nike Plus ecosystem, the chip, the shoe, the Fitbit, everything. So that's what RGA did. From a business point of view, it helped transform Nike from a shoe company into a technology company. There's been over 1 trillion interactions on Nike Plus thus far. And then our present iteration is we've moved on and we've become also a business consultancy offering. So we do everything from experience design, redesigning shopping malls, redesigning what a supermarket could be and should be, beyond just technical, beyond just digital interfaces. Here's a list of some of the clients that we work around the region. So we're not so important, but it just gives you a flavor of where we came from and who we are. So, okay, on to exponential change. Have you all heard this term before? Kind of, yeah. That's the kind of age that we're living in now. But I think as a mindset, once we explain exponential change, we want you to embrace it and think that there are exponential opportunities. I think exponential change is scary if all you have is one job, and when the change comes, takes away the job, then it's scary. So I'll give you an example of that. If I'm a 51-year-old taxi driver, bus driver, container truck driver, in 5 years' time, when self-driving cars come, then I'll be thinking, I don't have a job. But then I'm thinking, I'm retiring at 65, 67, so I have 12 more years. What the hell am I going to do, right? I have to reinvent and keep myself going for 12 years. Come 67, exponential change in medical technology will tell you, congratulations, you're not going to live to 82.1 years, which is the Singapore male life expectancy. You might live to 100. So actually, it's around 65, you got another third of your life to go. So if you think you only have one job, then it's scary. But if you have a growth mindset, then there are actually a lot of opportunities to look forward to. So let me explain what causes exponential change. You've heard of Moore's law, which is the doubling of computing power every 18 months, thereabouts. That's one of the key components of driving technology change. It's been going on for 50 years, okay? So we're hitting this curve now where the computer, some predictions by Ray Kurzweil that says in 2049, the computer will be as smart as the human being. That's where singularity is supposed to arrive, where humanity has to make a choice. Do we become part machine, or the next 18 months, the computer will be twice as smart as human beings. And then the computer will figure out like who's destroying the earth? You guys. How to save the earth? Eliminate you guys. Skynet, okay? So example of this is human genome sequencing used to take 10 over years. hundreds of millions of dollars now is 16 hours and $2,000. That's now. It'll be cheaper and cheaper. And you all see that. I don't need to go into examples of it. Business point of view, what does exponential change do for business? And this is, I'm not going back to the 1900s or anything. I'm just going to 2013. You look, the top company then was Apple, 416 billion, Exxon, oil, traditional businesses, Berkshire Hathaway, PetroChina, Walmart. 5 years on, quarter one, Apple, Alphabet, Microsoft, Amazon, Tencent. Exponential change, exponential results, exponential business growth. And this is quarter one. Huh? By quarter three, Apple became the first trillion-dollar company. So that's exponential growth that you think we are looking at now. So all these things are happening. So if businesses evolve at that speed, jobs will come and go, careers and industries will be made obsolete and all. So that's all coming down the pipeline. Let's just look at China. Okay, exponential growth. GDP of these Chinese cities compared with countries. Shenzhen is the equivalent of Sweden. And this is the fastest push for a country to raise like hundreds of millions of people into the middle class. Well, I mean, seriously, if you think about it, 20, 30 years ago, where were these provinces and cities? They weren't anywhere. So that's how fast things are going. I'll give you a more recent example. 11/11 Singles Day. Who bought stuff on Singles Day? Right? Okay. Don't be shy. You don't put that. I bought stuff.
You're asking really personal questions.
I know.
Who's single? Who was born in the 70s?
Come on. Singles Day was on 11/11, right? They sold $30 billion. Amazon last year sold $287 billion. So in one day, they made over 10%. They've sold over 10% of what Amazon took over a year. That is exponential change and growth already. And that's happening, okay? If you look at the technology that China has over that Singles Day, they've now implemented for part of Singles Day, if you're within 3 kilometers of a supermarket and whatever you buy, delivery happens within an hour. Okay, that's in China. We don't even have that here. We don't even have cashless payment as much as what the Chinese have at the moment. Okay, so that's all coming down the pipeline. That change will happen. This is exponential. This is now the norm. Whatever you think will take 5 years, will take 2 years. So let's look at the history of story. So I'm just setting the framework for exponential change, and then how does that change apply to storytelling? It's also increasing the number of ways to share and consume content. It's easier than ever to tell a story now. If you look at this, you know, we started with cave paintings, and the only way to share was I bring you into the cave to show you the paintings. And then it moves on. Printing was a huge thing. Telegraph, radio, and you see the acceleration happening over here, right? And then sooner or later, it'll be synapses, we'll be transferring memories, we'll be downloading everything onto the cloud or live, and then no one dies, and then you can hear what like Superman, your grandfather telling you and giving you advice. That's all coming down. How many more years? Not that far away, okay? So the ability to tell that stories, and also compounded with exponential change, the abundance of information, right? It's growing exponentially, the amount of knowledge out there. So like, for example, my kids, they go to school, they don't understand what happens in school because the teacher has 45 minutes to teach a module and then I don't get it. They go back, they Google Khan Academy, and it's all explained to them. Then they come to me and they go, why should I go to school? Then I go, I don't have an answer. It's true, everything's there. MIT's downloaded the courses anyway, right? So there's a knowledge doubling curve. If you look at the 1900s, the knowledge doubled every century. And now it's every 13 months. Who knows, soon it'll be every 12 hours. After a while, every hour, the knowledge doubles. You'll be able to now create a fusion reactor in your home. You just go to YouTube and then Google build fusion reactor budget $200. How do I do it? Video appears. Okay. So I think the important thing to know is that human minds, we think linearly, but what happens with technology is exponential, so that's the tension point. Let me just give an example what we mean by linear. My father had a job throughout his whole life, one job. He would tell me, son, you might have 2 or 3 jobs in your whole life. If I think linearly, I'll look at my kids and go, you have 6 or 7 jobs. But actually, if I think exponentially, they will be having 6, 7 different careers in their lifetime. That's one. Careers, huh? Not jobs, careers, because it will come and go obsolete and all. And then my life expectancy, like I said, is 82.1. I might be thinking, oh, if I think linearly, my kid's life expectancy might be 86, 87. That's the normal chart. But if you factor in medical technology and how exponentially it's growing, they'll be living to 120, 150. So do you plan to raise them for a life expectancy of 85, 86? Or do you plan to raise them for 120, 150? Because that changes everything. Marriage will change. I already told my kids, no point getting married because you can't be married to someone for 120 years. Let's face it. You look at your parents, 30 years is a struggle. Multiply it 4 times, you're screwed, man. Okay, so that's all coming down the pipeline. And then the whole idea of getting a degree at 25 and then getting a career for the rest of your life, that's not going to work. You study to be, like if my son says, I want to be an architect, I go, okay, you graduate in 10 years' time. I don't know whether the job will exist. So why? So why are we defining ourselves? So all this is coming down the pipeline, leading to the change in storytelling. So I paint a bleak picture, and then all of you are thinking, might as well slip my wrist now. And I will now prominently hand over to Laurent, who will talk about data-driven stories.
All right. Okay. So, like Calvin said in the slide earlier before talking about the people who were going to live longer, I will go back to it quickly. So, you guys are all using all these platforms to tell story, right? So you're using Instagram and Snapchat. I mean, not so much Snapchat here. TikTok, all these things. And so you're providing content to this platform. By providing content to this platform, this platform have a lot of data they can then use to tell story potentially, or to personalize the experience of the apps you are using. So how is it related to Unity? You will see later. So data-driven story is the first step. So with so much data available out there, the first thing company have been doing, product have been doing, is to personalize experiences, right? So your Facebook feed is your own Facebook feed. What you see is what you like, is your friend base, mainly what you like. What you like to consume will appear more and more. So it's the same on Instagram, it's the same on YouTube. I mean, YouTube is quite special. I mean, it's very addictive. So I have a kid and I have 2 kids, but my son is quite addicted to the iPad, sadly. And YouTube is a consumption machine, right? All of that because of the constant learning of your viewing habits, what you like, etc. You can spend 5 days on YouTube, very much. I mean, you can spend days, months, I mean, just watching content on YouTube. It never ends. So, experiences are being personalized. There's another thing that is happening, which is quite interesting. Mass entertainment is starting to be personalized. So I think the best example of that happened a few years ago. I mean, you know probably about it. So Netflix started creating shows based on data, right? If you look at the type of data, and not everything is there, but Netflix is collecting, they know everything about what you do on the platform. It's very much like any kind of analytics you would have put on a game or on a website or an application. So they know everything you're doing, but they also know when you're pausing content, when you're skipping content. All of that is important information for them to personalize not just the experience, the user experience, but as well personalize the content they are providing. Today, Netflix has billions of dollars in money to spend on production was the biggest production house in the planet by a large distance for TV show. They are going into film as well, as you know. And that show, for example, House of Cards was the first one. It was quite an experiment. It was very successful. This show was produced specifically because Netflix, based on data, knew that it will appeal to most of the Netflix audience at the time. Not everyone will like it, but a large part of the user will like it. Now, every single show they produce, because they start producing show in the region as well, in Singapore, in Malaysia, there's a lot of Indonesian show now on Netflix. All these shows are based on data. I mean, there's cultural insight as well, but data. And so this is happening very fast. There is another interesting experiment that Calvin is going to explain. It's Wattpad. So perhaps you know Wattpad.
So Wattpad is like, you publish your book or your novel and then people read it. And so it started off as that. But Wattpad's now making more of his money selling his data. So they'll tell you, okay, this month in this country, vampire plus sci-fi plus romance plus a little bit of werewolves thrown in will sell. So they're selling all that data now. So you as a author or a novelist will go, okay, let me craft a story around with those elements. So it'll give you all that data feedback. So it's the way forward. And you talk about exponential change. You look at Netflix, the budget this year for producing content is $13 billion. That's more than how many Hollywoods combined. Huh? So that it's all happening. Okay, and data is important.
Yes. So we just look at data that help personalize mass entertainment, right? Netflix, Wattpad, Hollywood movies. We are starting to see data to create your own personal entertainment. So I'm going to show you something we built last year for Uber. Uber is one of our clients. So this is something we actually created out of Singapore. So you may have seen it, right? I'm going to show you the case study, but this project was a data-driven music video, but quite complex to create with a very complex pipeline. This is not the only experiment of that type. There's a lot of Nike experiences based on your Nike data. They can create film. So I'm just going to play the case study. Okay, so now I'm showing you portion of the deck we actually show the client at the time. So Uber, like the company, is very receptive to that kind of work. They get it. They have data which is easily accessible. The API are there. But we needed to just tell them how we're going to create that story. So it's very simple. In films, you have storyboards. In that case, we had a storyboard. The difference is that each scene is mapped onto the data point. So as simple as that. There is nothing super complex in it. The difficulty is to be able to generate that content more or less in real time, right? And to give that to the user, especially when you have like 100,000 users at the same time on the platform. This is quite a complex a system to scale. So you can imagine we use like transcoder in Amazon, etc. But this is an engine that we have built, but now we can reuse for many type of experience. We are getting so many themes to build which are interactive or data-driven. Is becoming quite common to personalize the content we provide to the consumers, to the consumer of our client. So we have made a quick hypothesis. We think this is coming to Netflix. You may have seen that next year or this year, I'm not really sure when, next season of Black Mirror, so season 3 or 4, I don't know, 4. One of the episodes will have, will give you the possibility to choose the ending, right? So that's coming. And we have made some guess about what the experience could be on Netflix going forward as well regarding the content. The same way you can skip the recap, you can skip the credits. Why not skipping a fight because you don't like fight scene, or skipping the car chase? I mean, I didn't change the image because you don't like car chase. So it's quite a simple data point to collect for Netflix. We can imagine that they may personalize the storyboard based on your preference, right? So we can anticipate that this is coming. So what does it mean? It means that the director needs to have that in mind, right? So at some point we will hit a problem, but as you scale in the complexity of data affecting the content, the director will not be able to shoot so many scenes. So that's where Unity may make sense later on. But what it means as well is that when we grew up, for the one born in the 70s, like we were saying earlier, or 80s, we grew up in a world where we had to sit in front of the TV at a specific time to watch, let's say, football, a film, etc. This is quite strange today when everything is available on demand at any time in very high quality. I mean, we have to realize how different the world is today from what it was just 20 years ago. But we believe we are going to move into even more personalized on-demand content world. So it means the content you will watch, you will consume, will be very specific to what you like. So we can anticipate that to come in the next few years. What it means as well is the way you tell story, the way you create story has to change. So the people telling story have to evolve, right? So there is an interesting phenomenon I'm going to talk about, which is AI taking a place in the workflow of telling story right now. Or not just artificial intelligence, but code as well. Sometimes it's just simple algorithms that are helping in creating content. So, I mean, first you understand artificial intelligence, right? If you want to create a machine learning model, you need data, and we have obtained so much data in the last few years that it's getting easier, right, to create this model. So you understand the process, you feed the machine, you create a model, then you apply that model, and you improve that model. So it's like a cycle. So it's already being tested. I don't know if any of you is using Google Photo. Google Photo is experimenting constantly about optimizing your picture, about creating movies. A lot of them are quite terrible still, but some of them are quite interesting. I have put all the picture I digitized in Google Photo. It's starting to create film about my life, which is quite interesting. Some of them, again, are very bad, but some of them are very interesting. I will show you one created by Google Photo for a friend who went to on a trip in Europe. He went from Switzerland to Spain or Spain to Switzerland. And because he's a creative person, he took specific shot. And the machine was able to recognize the shot and made the right film. So that's done by Google Photo, that film, for example. So obviously the system is learning as you create this film if the film is good or bad, right? You may save it into your library or may just keep it. So all of that is data collected on the quality of the output, and the machine keeps improving. But let's look at what you need to create a film. Let's say you need script, you need visuals, you need music, right? So we have seen a lot of experiment in the last few years around the generation of scripts. I'm sure you have seen that terrible short movie called Sunspring. So Sunspring was shot based on a script written by a machine. So the machine, and that's the actor from Silicon Valley, the machine was fed with some of the biggest sci-fi, I don't know if you see it correctly, the biggest sci-fi book there is, right? Or story there is. So there is quite a spectrum of story here. I mean, from Interstellar to other thing. But so the machine was fed with his story and created its own script. And this guy and this team, I mean, this group of actors tried to act onto it. I'm not going to play it because it's very weird, but it's interesting. So that was done 3 years ago, probably, no? So, and more recently, we have seen other experiment around telling story, the machine telling a story based on an image, for example. So there is this thing you can find on GitHub called Neural Storyteller. You can actually play with it. Again, that was done like 2-3 years ago. The machine was fed with a romance book, right? And based on this, the style of writing romance, the machine is capable of describing the image. So I'm going to show you, they created a YouTube video with a lot of art like that. That is this image with the script generated by the machine, but someone is actually speaking. I mean, I think they use text-to-speech. I mean, just watch it, you will see, it's quite funny.
Following stories are generated by a neural network. It describes the content of images and is trained on romance novels. Enjoy.
I've never seen a man tie her up before, so that is the reason for that. The man wore a pair of black slacks and a coat vest and tie.
I didn't want to tear my eyes away from Bill. I had no idea what he meant to me. The rest of the crowd gathered around us, and for a moment, I was pretty sure she was the only person in the entire world.
The flying man was barely on the ground. In fact, it felt as if he were going to jump.
In fact, he had his hands on her hips, holding her close to his chest and looking down at her as if she were the most stunning woman I'd ever seen. The man released a woman's blood, and that was the reason for all of them.
They were gone.
After he gets very political. So but that's interesting, right? Another experiment to tell story based on machine learning. So now I'm going to show you other experiments that were also done in the last few years to create visuals. So some of them are just using code, things like processing, for example, and others are using AI. So I'm going to play that music video, just a portion of it. That was created by an artist from Shanghai called Raven, I forgot his name, Raven something. And that artist, now based in the US, is very famous in the scene because he started creating this music video for electronic artists just using processing. Because what he is doing, you can generate it with After Effects or Final Cut or Premiere without spending 6 months doing it. So using code made a big difference. All right, I'm not playing the entire thing, but you can see the math, right? So that's quite fascinating. So now he's doing that all the time. So if you watch his latest video, it's quite incredible what he's actually doing. And again, there were experiments done inside Google. You definitely know about this one. So some Google engineer tried to figure out what the machine could output based on all the image the machine had acquired over the years. And they realized it was quite weird. And he started something called style transfer, right? You know about style transfer. Now it's pretty good. A team of Russian engineers created Prisma, and there was another app, I forgot, but there's video as well. This guy, what they managed to do is to make style transfer mostly immediate in when you apply it. It used to take hours, if not days. I mean, when we tried to do it ourselves, at the beginning it was very long. It was a very complex process. Now it's immediate. Prisma has API, so you can actually use Prisma API to do your own style transfer, teach a machine, and then apply the model. So again, all of that was done a few years ago. There were experiments also where people were starting to create characters. In this case, these are Pokemon, right? So they fed the machine with Pokemon and they tried to generate new Pokemons. They are quite weird, right, clearly. But these are interesting experiments. You can imagine a future where Disney may use machine AI to actually create new Disney character. Why not, right? We could get there at some point. So that was done a few years ago. Now, if we look at what's happening in the last few months, in the last few weeks, again, exponential change, things happen very fast. It is standard for every single company that is expecting to be world-class out there to use code or even to use artificial intelligence. So, for example, Interstellar, the black hole, was created in C++. That's quite incredible. But if you look at the farm they have, it's quite impressive as well. But you can create that in After Effects. You can create that in a 3D software. I mean, you can technically, but it's easier to just use the physics, the algorithm, and to generate the output based on the real formula. I'm going to show you something else that was done recently using code for MoMA, which is the Museum of Modern Art. They use code to generate an identity. So there is a lot of data-driven branding work recently. So it means the logo of a company may change according to data or other things. And they do things in this case with code, but you can't do that fast with, again, After Effects or something like that. It's done by a company called The Mill. The Mill is like probably the best studio in the UK. They have created some of the most iconic advertising in the 80s, 90s when it was golden age of advertising. But now they have engineers who are actually generating output. I will show you the film. So you may recognize some of the stuff done there is stuff you can definitely do in Unity, right? They may have been using open framework. I'm not really sure. I mean, you can use whatever you're comfortable in, but there is a space for engine framework to be used in film and similar. So now I'm going to talk about other things, then we talk about Unity. So in terms of visual, so code has been used to create visual recently, is now common, but AI is also gaining like crazy traction in terms of visual generation. You may have seen this thing sold for $500,000 recently. It's generated by a machine. They use a GAN. I forgot how to explain what GAN is, but it was generated by a GitHub library you can get from this guy. His name is Robbie Barrett. So there's quite a lot of controversy around what has been sold, because this guy is the one who actually created the framework. And he's 19 years old. And when he created the framework, he was 17, right? And some French guy like me, so very dishonest, went to get his algorithm and sold quite an average painting for $500,000. Because if you look at what he's doing, it's next level. We are also seeing AI-based art in museums. So this guy is exhibiting his work in Madrid, for example, and it's quite interesting. It's very weird. It's what the machine output in this case is still quite weird, but it's getting special. So that's very interesting. And we're also seeing AI being used for by writers. So this guy is also an engineer, but he happened to write story, to write books. So he created his own tool to augment his writing capability, right? That's what AI is good at, is to augment your skills, right? So in this case, he wrote some kind of system that is pretty similar to what Gmail does. So when you're in Gmail, you write something, Gmail autocomplete, right? And it's getting very good. It's quite interesting. So he did something similar, but based on the type of story he wants to tell, the type of word is usually, or sentence is usually using, and he released the book, and he was in the New York Times. So that's very, very recent. So we are seeing AI and code being used for visual. We are seeing artificial intelligence writing script. In my opinion, there is a massive space for Unity in terms of using the engine to actually serve as a basis for storytelling, for visual generation for films. So I'm sure you have seen this example because it has been shared by Unity many times. I think it's called Neon. So there is a blog article that explains how it was put together, but all the assets in that scene that I'm going to play are all coming from the store, right? I think it was put together in one day. So this is Unity, and this is also Unity. So Baymax Dream, which I believe in the last Unite in LA, if I'm not wrong, was explained in grandiose on the grand stage. But they just won an Emmy. I don't know where is the Unity team right now, but I think they won an Emmy yesterday. We were reading with Calvin. The first Emmy digital, what was it? I don't know, yeah. But they won an Emmy Award, which is very difficult to win. Well, clearly, usually it was won by content creator. In this case, it was won by Unity, right? I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, Unity. So what is that? Is a spin-off of Baymax, clearly from Big Hero. And the entire TV show is generated using Unity in real time. So it means the director was working with the engineer, the modeler, etc., on Unity, looking at the scene as the scene happens and just move the camera within Unity. So this is fascinating. I mean, there is clearly a future for Unity Unity is a game platform, but Unity is has a massive opportunity, and clearly they know it in film, in Hollywood. So we are seeing other things as well in the generation of visual, which is synthesizing thing. Synthesizing, I mean, you know synthesizers to make music, but you can synthesize visual, and recently they have been using artificial intelligence to create deepfake, for example. Obama on the right doesn't exist, but he speaks, I don't know if you have seen that video, probably, he speaks what the real Obama on the left is actually saying. The one on the right was constructed based on a lot of Obama visual data. Similarly, NVIDIA is investing crazy money and research in artificial intelligence, and they have released this paper a few weeks ago, which is to generate video. I mean, they are synthesizing streets, right? They're synthesizing car, buildings, tree, and the street. It doesn't exist, so we have to think about these things. It's like the Matrix, right? This image don't exist. It may look like something you know, but it doesn't exist. It's nowhere on this planet. So it's generated based on the mask here on the top left. So that mask defines per color what element we want to draw. So it could be a street, it could be, I mean, the street itself, the road, sorry. It could be the tree, it could be the building. And what we can do after that is adjust. So we could say, oh, I want more tree, or I want more building, right? So if you think about it, it means we will be able to generate visuals the same way. So give it a few years, exponential change again happening, it's going to impact. I mean, there is an example recently of Jet Li. So you may have seen that Jet Li, the Kung Fu guy, he didn't want to be in the Matrix. Is the Matrix, right? Because he say, I don't want Hollywood to own me, own my data. That's he already got. I mean, he heard probably that this was coming. So he say, I don't want to be in these films. But in a way, there is enough Jet Li content technically to actually create him already. But this is interesting. So we can anticipate that all the actors are going to go away.
Well, long after Jet Li is dead, Hollywood will still own his moves and can recreate and profit off him.
Yeah, exactly.
That's basically what it is.
Yeah. So you can create visual, you can create script, you can create music as well. I mean, in the game industry, why we talk to you guys is because you guys have been doing procedural, generative for a long time. This is normal in the game industry, but it's not normal out there. And so now music generation is a thing through artificial intelligence. There is this thing called Magenta, which is a group inside Google that is focused on art generation using TensorFlow. But so far, they have been mainly doing music generation. So they have been creating tools which are kind of Chrome experiment that use web MIDI, things like that, to augment music skills of individuals, right? You use the machine. It's like you're jamming with the machine. So it's quite weird. You used to jam with your friend, now you jam with the machine. It's a bit weird. They also release a synthesizer, which is like a open source hardware synthesizer. So they give you the specs, you can actually go and put it together yourself. So that synthesizer has sound which have been created by the machine. So these sounds are unique, right? So they are based on collection on data, sound data from the past. So the question, everyone, is we have a lot of conversation around what's happening with our colleague. Is it going to replace you? Is it going to augment you? So we have this example from the past. So it's like saying, did the ruler replace us, right? We used to draw line terribly, right? And with the ruler, we are drawing straight line. So it's a bit the same with digital tools. I remember when Photoshop 1.0, that's Photoshop 1.0, came into the market, everybody was either saying it's crap or was saying it's going to replace people, right? People were retouching images. People moved on. I mean, the one who didn't, they got left behind. I mean, it has been happening over and over again in this world, right? It's quite normal. But that was the first phase. These tools were very much mimicking the analog version, right? And then we came into what we can call assisted, machine assisting human 2.0, where we had autofocus, right? On the Leica, we have auto-completion, we have auto-tune with all the terrible. Anybody can sing more or less this day, right? Auto-tune used to be very clear, but it's getting better, which is freaky. So it means you don't need to sing, you just need to look good and dance very well. But we are now entering in how we can call it phase 3, right? Which is the machine is going to teach you skills as, for example, you draw, make you a very good designer, even if you're not a good designer, and create world-class art, even if you're not a world-class painter, let's say. So this is coming super fast, right? I don't know if you have been playing with some of these AI experiments from Google, but it's quite interesting. So where is it going to end up? So Calvin talked about singularity earlier. So singularity is at the end of this curve. So computing power doubling every year. So we can anticipate, in this case, is what? Yeah, 2045. So what's going to happen after that? So where we are going with that is that we can anticipate, it's another guess, but I think it's a fair guess, hypothesis that content will be your own content using this visual generated by machine. Unity as a space is clearly an opportunity there. So why not having your own Star Wars episode, right? I mean, what's impossible? It used to be that there were 3 Star Wars and that's it. I remember we never thought they would shoot even 3 additional Star Wars like they did. And now 9, and now 1 Star Wars a year. So we can imagine having 1 Star Wars a month, or 1 Star Wars a week, or 1 Star Wars every time you want to watch Star Wars. So this is going to come. It's getting easier to do VFX, but now it's getting easier to generate this thing, right? We're not looking at perhaps the next few years, perhaps in 20 years, 15 years, but again, we don't know how fast it's going to evolve. So we think this is coming. So the future, yes, made of content generated on the fly, more or less. So for me, and Calvin probably can bounce back on that, the opportunity for all of us is for you guys to collaborate with video editors, collaborate with, I don't know, sound engineer, just to find partners which are not in your field, like you do in gaming, but just to see if there's an opportunity there, right? You want to add on that? Yeah?
I think next slide, I suppose. The thing is, if you watch Star Wars, you don't like the way it ends, you could create your own ending. And then we'll figure out which ending we'd like to watch. Do you know what I mean? And then Lucasfilm will figure out, or Hollywood will figure out how to reward you for that. If you think of the exponential change when business models, Airbnb is now trying to push through in America that any host becomes a shareholder in the company. So you're given shares. It's like Facebook paying you to post. That's the future. So if you could do a version of Star Wars that everyone watches, they'll pay you more for it. Okay, that's all coming. I think, you go through this.
Yeah, no, but you can, if you want more information, just go and check this platform. So there is a creative AI movement, which is called Creative. You can find some of the example on creativeai.net. It's not so up to date. It seems like they are posting less than before. There's a great article, I think you just Google it. It's on Medium, it's called Creative AI, on the democratization and escalation of creativity. It gives you history and future of it. There's far more content on it. It's quite fascinating. I guess that's it. So, yeah?
Yeah, just one other thing. Just as a roundup, we said exponential change, exponential opportunities. even though AI and the machines are coming over to rule our lives, it's ruling your life now. We don't want to admit it. But the one thing the machines cannot still do is they cannot be humans. They cannot imagine, they cannot create, they cannot intuit, they cannot perceive, they cannot love, empathize, contemplate, be compassionate. So that's still our skill. So don't forget the power that we have, that you still will, which is imagination. It's the superpower for this century. So just keep that inner child in you alive, and then use these tools to augment it. It's never going to replace, it still can't do that. There will come a time, but in the meantime, they still can't do it. And that's still keeping us relevant in this day and age.